Oh. Om Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Parerishwaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudya Tetra Kritibihi Shushrushubistat Kshanat. Hari Om, and greetings from Vrindavana. When the Amrita had come out of the Kshira Sagara, when the nectar of immortality had come from the churning of the milky ocean, then what Devi Mohini was doing, she was looking at the Asuras and offering to the Suras. Everyone remembers that. What this shows is the Asuras were lost in multitasking, thinking one way, acting in another way. When we multitask, we are left looking like and being like an Asura, weak. Our course is designed for us to become gopis, not just physically, but more so our course is designed for us to become gopis, for us to unitask the purpose of our life to be Bhagavan Krishna. I had read a beautiful description of what this means. It means becoming hot wax and Bhagavan Krishna's stamp to be placed on this hot wax. Then that seal is with you forever. Everyone caught that visualization? Most beautiful. Coming back to our previous class, all that Bhagavan Krishna and Balarama do is Madhura, is the sweetest of the sweet. I'll read a description of how sweet Balarama is. I'm going to read it in English because this language is too lovely. Carrying Balarama, who was weighty like a mountain, the Asura's speed slackened, and he resumed his hidden Asura form. With the numerous golden ornaments on his body and the fair complexioned Rama, that is Balarama, on his shoulder, the Asura looked like a cloud adorned with streaks of lightning and carrying the moon. Did you all understand that? When we contemplate on each of these lines, these paragraphs, you become sweet too. Pralamba is the last asura that we studied. Pralamba is an icon for greed. Greed is often disguised in our lives as ambition. We treat ambition to be a strength when all ambition does is make us more greedy. And unlike desire and anger, which come as a storm, greed comes slowly. And that's why Pralamba was disguised as a human, correct? Desire, Trinavarta, was designed or disguised as a tornado. Other asuras were animals. They're all fast. But here, how thoughtfully greed is disguised as a human. How do we destroy this demon that lives inside of us? The preventative way, be generous. Make generosity one of your characteristics. You should be known for this, because in doing so, you're also nurturing adaptability. Because you keep giving more, which means you have less to support yourself with, but you're adapting to still be happy, content. This is how to address greed in a preventative way, to be generous. In a reactive way, if you're going to be greedy about that which is sattvic, that which is productive, like reading and writing and reflecting. Every facet of Bhagavan Krishna and Balarama is Madhura. The same with Rishi Vyasa. His writing is the sweetest of the sweet, and I'll give you an example of this. At that time, there broke out a terrific forest fire, the most destructive enemy of forest dwellers. It was advancing fast with the help of its chariot driver, the wind, licking up on its way all living things and all non-living things with its flamy tongues. When you listen to NPR, did they describe forest fires like this? The sweetest of the sweet. It almost makes you like forest fires. Now, this is not an asura, but a sura that is an enemy known as Agni. Bhagwan Brahma is also a sura. I'm using the word Bhagwan, but represents an inner enemy. Agni here symbolizes indulgence. Indulgence. Indulgence is when we engage in the wrong actions. And as we engage in these wrong actions, we do so in the wrong way. In a very light way. Should you eat ice cream? Wrong question, right? Should you eat fast food? I think that's a better question. If you knew what was contained in fast food, eating fast food is the wrong action, yes? Now, if you're going to eat fast food, just eat a small order of French fries or a sundae. But what do? We get 2 combos for ourselves. See the wrong action in the wrong way. How do we correct this? Clarity. The word that Swami Tejomayananda used is Viveka. Clarity about the right actions and the right way. Right actions, right way. To make this most practical, what I try to do to not succumb to indulgence is to feel someone I respect and love is always watching me. When are we most indulgent? When we feel we are alone. But if you have the bhava that Bhagavan Krishna is always with you, then our actions and ways will be corrected. There will be a clarity. We continue. In the Ramayana, we observed that Bhagavan Rama had very little chance to play, to have downtime. It seems like he went from one serious matter to another serious matter. And I think he was tired, which is why he came as Bhagavan Krishna. And what has he been doing since he was born? Playing. Too much downtime for Bhagavan Krishna. I was telling Sheila, sometimes we're overwhelmed with responsibilities with our kids. And I was telling her how Bhagavan Krishna used to pinch kids to make them cry. And we're lucky Vyasa is not doing that yet, only to Shuka. It's almost like he's entitled to do that. That Bhagavan Krishna used to pee and poo in neighbors' yards. Our kids are not doing that yet. So when I was sharing that with Sheila, she felt less overwhelmed then. So Bhagavan Krishna is playing a lot. And the play he's in right now is him observing nature during the Chaturmasya, the rainy season. And you all know this is our completing class for 2020. For your reference, Guruji Swami Tejomayananda has written a lovely book called Sri Rama's Reveries. Sri Rama's Reveries, where he and Sri Lakshmana are also experiencing the rainy season and learning from every facet. For those who are not into reading, I've given discourses on this book. These discourses are called The Relevance of Ramayana. This is on our YouTube channel. That was like, this message is brought to you by our corporate sponsor. Buy this book, watch these lectures. In the 10th skanda, the 20th adhyaya, this is the section where Bhagavan Krishna is observing nature. And I have to apologize to all of you for all of Bhagavatam, but specifically this portion. I want to share every facet with you. And I start, but then I'm never left with enough time. This is a difficult subject to teach because you want to share and share and share, but we don't have that environment for that fully. So what I'm going to do now is review what I introduced last week. I will move more slowly. You can correct your notes. You can write your notes fresh. There are lots of observations, lots of teachings that Bhagavan Krishna shares. I'm highlighting the 11 most meaningful ones for Vivek. And I feel for you also. Bhagavan Krishna observes that the clouds that are covering the sun, remember this is the rainy season, is like the gunas, tamas, rajas, sattva, that cover Brahman. Contemplate on that. Number 2, the water that is in the bodies of water that the sun evaporates and then pours down as rain is like the tax that is collected by a ruler and then given out to the community as funds for this program or that program. The point being is that a ruler, should never hold that for herself or himself. Number 3, there is so much rain, which is why the grass is growing, and with grass growing, mushrooms grow too. Bhagavan Krishna, observing this, envisions this as an army, and scattered throughout this army are royal umbrellas. Those mushrooms are royal umbrellas. And the point being is that army is to serve whoever is under that umbrella. We are to serve Bhagavan in the same way, to give up our life for Bhagavan. Number 4, the way the rains are hitting the mountains. And I was sharing in an earlier class that really they're hillocks. The only mountains in Bharat are in the north, not through the plains. Is like the struggles that a bhakta endures. Those rains cannot hurt that mountain. The struggles you and I go through seeking cannot stop a bhakta, a devotee. Number 5, the way cows with heavy udders, they slowly are moving, but they move fast when Bhagavan Krishna calls them. And as they're moving, some of their milk is falling. For us, we tend to be slow in our love, in our disciplines. And that means we have to let go of some of our weight. The weight of articles, the weight of emotional baggage, to be able to reach Bhagavan. If he's calling us, we have to reach there. We have to do what it takes to get there. Number 6, when autumn kicks in, the sky becomes clear of clouds. The density of vegetation thins out. The mud on the earth becomes drier, and the dirt in the water becomes still, means falls to the bottom. So there's 4 clearings out here in the sky, amongst the vegetation, the ground, and the water. And what this symbolizes for us is Bhagavan's presence can purify all the ashramas. That's why all 4 are highlighted. These are different ashramas, correct? Whether one is a student or one is living as a family, etc. So all gets cleared out. Number 7, the way streams that are flowing down mountains give water in some places, but don't give water in other places. This symbolizes those who are enlightened sometimes speak and sometimes are just quiet. Number 8, the way that fish move about in water, not realizing the rainy season is over, the water is evaporating. For us, when we only live for our family, we never think about anything bigger like community, society, our age is also evaporating without us making use of our years, our opportunity. Number 9, the way the lushness of the trees and plants give up their moisture because they're drying up now. The same way, one who is a seeker gives up the sense of I and mine. Give up I and mine. Mine is the moisture. I is that plant itself. They start to give that up. Now number 10 and 11. I'm reordering these, okay? This is a new 10. The way the sea becomes calm, because rivers are not pouring into the sea, in the same way, for one who's quiet in their mind, they no longer chant or argue. Why do we chant? To quieten our minds. Why do we argue? Because our minds are not quiet. But if our minds become quiet, we don't need to chant anymore. We don't need to argue anymore. And number 11, which is the verse I read last week, in autumn, you can start to see the stars. At night, you start to see the stars, just like one whose mind is filled with sattva, or calmness. They come to see the meaning of the scriptures. Everyone is more comfortable with all that I've shared now. I've gone through 1 through 11. Lots to contemplate on, okay? And for your further study, I told you the 10th skanda, the 20th adhyaya. You read all of it. And now we continue to the last message of 2020, one of the most beautiful messages of Bhagavatam. This is not Raja Parikshita asking Rishi Shuka a question. This is not Rishi Shuka describing something to Raja Parikshita. This is the gopis speaking to the gopis. Everyone pause and look around at all of the gopis. Looking good, no? This is how Vrindavana would have been. Some older, some younger, some taller, some shorter. Some with more genuine smiles, some with more sinister smiles. I'm talking about myself, not you, okay? The 10th skanda, the 21st adhyaya. All of these chapters are important. Now you know the 20th has all of these teachings. We're now on the 21st. This is the 20th shloka. 10, 21, 20, the gopis sharing with the gopis. Evam veda bhagavato ya vrindavana charinaha varnayanto mito gopyaha kridastan mayatam yayuhu. And what this means is, Evam Veda Bhagavato Ya, all that they knew about Bhagavan Krishna, who is the Vrindavana Charinaha, the one who wandered around Vrindavana. Varnayanto Mito Gopyaha, the gopis were sharing what they knew, what they felt with each other. Kridastan Mayatam Yayuhu, as they were moving, as they were engaged in their responsibilities, they became silent. This is the translation. This section of Bhagavatam is known as Venu Gita. Venu Gita. Venu is another word for flute. The song of Bhagavan Krishna's flute, what it does to someone. If they're a gopi. If they're not a gopi, this is just rock and roll. This is just pop music. I should be sharing every verse with you. And I told you the difficulty with teaching such a subject. So I'm trying to share what's most meaningful, starting with how Bhagavan Krishna looked. And do note this because you know I'm going to ask you again to dress up as gopis because we haven't even come across the Rasa Leela yet. mango leaves behind his ears. Around his neck, a garland of wild flowers. Not the roses that we see at weddings that are frozen and cold. Fresh wildflowers with bees inside of them to keep you vigilant. And a crown of peacock feathers. Not straight, but tilted. The gopis speaking to each other, okay? Stop looking at this asura and envision these gopis. They're sharing that the flute that Bhagavan Krishna is holding, is kissing, is more fortunate, more bhagya than Devi Lakshmi. When you see Devi Lakshmi, she's at Bhagavan's feet. Where is this Venu? At his mouth. When I put our kids to bed, I don't just, here, I kick them, touch my feet. I kiss their forehead, I kiss their cheek. It's more intimate. The lakes were so moved by the sound of Bhagavan Krishna's flute that the flowers that were growing on the bottom, they brought them up. This is like one's hair standing on end. That's how a lake does it. The trees express this. The flowers that were on those trees, they started to radiate or emit nectar or more pollen. They're sharing themselves more. The peacocks that heard this song, they started dancing like they've never danced before. And every creature that saw them, even those that would eat peacocks, they all became still. Can you see that? The tigers, the bears, the snakes, just mesmerized by these peacocks who are mesmerized by Bhagavan Krishna's flute, which is mesmerized by Bhagavan Krishna. The cows, that is the mature cows, their ears stood up to be able to receive more of that sound. We see that with dogs sometimes that are hunting, but you don't see that with cows. What the calves were doing is they were all crying. They couldn't help themselves but cry. And naturally so, Bhagavan became all of them, remember? The cows weren't crying, the calves were crying. There was countless birds that had gathered around Bhagavan Krishna. Countless species, diversity. They were all rishis that had disguised themselves as these birds to come and listen. The rivers. I already described the lakes bringing up those lotuses from the ground to the top. The rivers did the exact opposite. As they were flowing, they started creating whirlpools everywhere. You've all seen that happen before. And what they were doing is taking these flowers and bringing it to the bottom of the bed of that river as if they were offering these flowers to the feet of Bhagavan Krishna. But you have to think about this lot. See, this whirlpool is them taking this flower and first bringing it to their heart and then offering it. That's how we offer, correct? Not I take it from the plate and throw it overhead. You bring it to your heart and you offer it. So that's what the whirlpools were doing. And the clouds. This is one of the last descriptions. The clouds saw Bhagavan Krishna and sensed that he is a friend. First physically, because they had the same skin color. And more so, just like clouds relieve people of their burn, that's what Bhagavan Krishna is doing too. And so those clouds came over Bhagavan Krishna and formed an umbrella. and let out a light drizzle, almost to make Bhagavan Krishna shine even more. The gopis are describing this to each other. Again, not Rishi Shuka, not Raja Parikshita. What a typical person would interpret as these simple women. But as you go through Venu Gita, they know more about Bhagavan Krishna than most of the personalities we've studied in the previous 9 skandhas. And what were they really doing? Shravana was earlier. They were listening to each other. But then this evolved to Manana, thinking about what all this meant, and was finalized as Nididhyasana, which is why they became silent. Iti Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahamsyam Samhitayam Dashamaskande Puvardhe Venugitam Nama Eka Vimsho Dhyayaha. All that was achara became chara. All that was immobile or unmoving, when they heard and experienced the life that Bhagavan Krishna was emitting, they started to become chara. They became mobile, became moving. And all that was chara became achara. All that was moving and mobile became unmoving, became still. Particularly, Venu Gita was chanted to Rishi Shuka when he was born and was walking away from Rishi Vyasa. Then Rishi Vyasa's disciples came to him and chanted Venu Gita, and that which was chara became achara. And Rishi Shuka came back to his father. So this is a secret parenting technique. If your kids are running away, chant Venu Gita.